Hi, yo, what's going on, little dragons? How are you feeling today? If you are feeling good, please do let me know down in the comments below. Drop a like on this video, share this video with your friends and family, and don't forget to punch that subscribe button, as it will help your little dragon out so very much. Now, today, we are going to be reacting to a very interesting, well, it's amazing. Thank you for, something that I said in a video, bro, I got you suggestions here, and watch, and I'm like, wow, thank you. Yeah. So in one of my, I did talk about inflation in one of my videos, so people and the German, how like the world wars would have affected the finances, because a lot of people, a lot of industry, a lot of companies were being in a huge loss, and then the rates of things will go up of things, and I think taxes would have been increased as well, because there's so many destructions that have happened during these wars and stuff. So I mentioned that I don't know too much about it, but that's why I'm here to learn with you guys, have fun learning together. So today we're going to be reacting to a thing called worthless paper money. German hyperinflation starts after World War I, the Great War, 1921. So this is a new channel that I'm going to be checking out. Seems like a long video, so I'm not going to pause it as much. Probably not even going to pause it all. Maybe. We'll see. If there is any ads, then yes. But yeah, hopefully they don't do me for copyrights. Hopefully this video is permitted and allowed for me to react. So yes, we're not going to wait. I'm not going to waste any more time. We are going to jump right into this. My little dragons. The right angle. What am I never? Okay. Let's go.
This episode of The Great War is sponsored by CuriosityStream. So go to curiositystream.com/thegreatwar for a special offer. But first, it's October 1921 and Germany is in crisis. Upper Silasia is about to be divided with Poland, and the German mark is in free fall.
Boy, not good. I mean, they would have provided a lot of jobs because they needed the machinery.
Hi, I'm Jesse Alexander, and welcome to the Great War. The German Republic that emerged from the November 1918 revolution faced crisis after crisis in its first few years. There were uprisings from the left, coup attempts from the right, and political assassinations by fanatical nationalists. The Versailles Peace Treaty also imposed Allied occupation of the Rhineland, disarmament, war reparations payments, and territorial losses. On top of all that, the economy had crashed.
Yeah.
In today's episode, we'll take a closer look at two aspects of the Weimar Republic's troubles in 1921. The beginning
Stock market
of the world's most famous
international
case
trading
of
would have been
and the division of Upper Silesia with Poland. And it all happened exactly 100 years ago. Before the outbreak of the First World War in 1914, the German mark was considered a stable and trusted currency backed by Germany's growing economic power. The strains of total war, however, drove down its value, and by 1918, the mark had lost half of its worth. The Imperial German government chose to stop backing its banknotes with gold and instead created new credit institutes and printed more money to finance the war. One of the flaws in this system was that people and companies could take out almost unlimited credit. Germany could have tried to combat wartime inflation by raising taxes, but this might have had a negative effect on morale. Instead, they tried to raise funds with war bonds, which allowed German citizens to lend money to the state. But financial deficits caused by the war could not be made up by the sale of war bonds. And the money presses kept on running. By 1917, the amount of money circulating in Germany was 5 times higher than it had been in 1913.
Oh my god. My god. Bro, I don't know. It's going to be really hard for the civilians. Really is. Hold up. It's going to be I guess like the war itself would have created jobs, so they would have had some money out of it. But who was that funding enough? We need to check out more.
Banker and outspoken
Doesn't
critic
add,
of the
that's what I
reparations, Hjalmar Schacht, later reflected on the problem. One war bond after another turned most of German private wealth into paper obligations for the state. Our enemies, especially England, chose another path. They financed the war through taxes, which mostly impacted industries and groups who profited from the war. English tax policy proved to be more socially just than the German policy of war bonds, which lost
so
their
like
value
companies,
after the
they would
war.
have had to pay and stuff.
In
So
August
they increases
1921,
their
the Vossische
prices for
Zeitung
products.
explained what had happened to its readers.
I'm sure.
The reason for the devaluation of our currency and loss of purchasing power of the mark was neither the balance of trade during the war nor our military situation abroad. It was rather the exploitation of our currency for the purpose of creating money for the government by a fictional increase in our total revenue. The country constantly created new paper money and new wealth on paper, while the real national wealth was continuously eaten up by the war.
They kept the currency the same, didn't
collapsed
they?
and the armistice
That
was
would make a
signed in
difference.
November 1918, the financial bubble burst. In fact, even a few days before that, on November 7th, one of the first mass demonstrations in Munich was caused by an increase in the price of beer by 6 pfennigs per liter. This was a sign that the population was already reaching the breaking point from losing their purchasing power. The post-armistice political and economic crisis only accelerated the devaluation of the mark. German exports were handicapped by the loss of its colonies, the British blockade that lasted until mid-1919,
My lack of knowledge does not help
of the Rhineland, and the loss of the important industrial regions to Poland and France. Internally, Germany's economy was paralyzed by revolution and counter-revolution, worker strikes, armed insurrections, and frequent demonstrations.
This is the scars left by World War
The
I.
mark began to go into free fall. In 1913, 20 German marks were worth £1 sterling. In December 1918, it was 43 to 1. And by December 1919, it was 185 to 1. And that was just the beginning. Meanwhile, living expenses had risen 8-fold since 1913. It seemed to some observers that the German Republic was on the verge of bankruptcy. Another factor in the German crisis came to a head in April 1921. The Allies presented the London Schedule of Payments, the final war reparations bill which they expected that Germany would pay.
Bro, so many people will be homeless
which the Germans had
because of this.
negotiated down from previous offers was 132 billion gold marks, payable in annual installments of 2 billion plus 26% of the value of German exports.
Something I need to say.
If they defaulted, the Allies could extend their occupation and charge the Germans more. The announcement sent the mark crashing again, and the exchange rate against the pound was now 268 to 1. The crisis caused Chancellor Konstantin Fehrenbach's government to collapse. It's worth mentioning as well that the Republic of Austria was experiencing an even worse case of inflation than Germany in 1921. Austria-Hungary had adopted a similar policy of money printing during the war, and the dismemberment of the empire left the new Austrian Republic an economic wreck. Austrian Anna Eisenmenger described the situation in her diary. Women bought large quantities of sugar, coffee, or other goods to protect themselves against price increases. Others spent their money willy-nilly, since the next day wine would be more expensive anyway. Prices rose by the hour, and people were possessed by a buying mania.
Not years, not weeks, hours.
Reacted by giving any excuse to close their shops. Similar scenes in Germany became much less common in the summer of 1921 as the mark began to somewhat stabilize, but it was still worth far less than in 1918. So by 1921, post-war political instability and economic dislocation in Germany had set in motion increasing inflation, which had temporarily calmed in the summer. One factor contributing to the stabilization was the outcome of the plebiscite in the disputed region of Upper Silesia. The ethnically mixed province of Upper Silesia was part of Germany that was now a disputed territory with neighboring Poland. According to the terms of the peace settlement, a vote was held, and 60% of Upper Silesians voted to stay with Germany rather than join Poland. The Poles claimed that the Germans had cheated, but in any case, the Allies were not legally bound by the results of the vote. Differences of opinion soon emerged between the Allies as to where the border should be drawn. France wanted to favor Poland, while the British were more concerned about preserving some of the region's important industry so that the German economy could recover. When it became clear that no compromise could be reached without risking lasting damage to the alliance, France and Britain broke off the talks. Meanwhile, a local proxy war had broken out between pro-German and pro-Polish militias. Given the deadlock and the violence, the future of Upper Silesia was handed over to the League of Nations. Neutral delegates from Belgium, China, Spain, and Brazil were selected to determine the border based on objective data, even though the Germans protested that they might be pro-French. After 2 months of deliberations, the League experts made a recommendation, and the decision was announced on October 20th, 1921. The new border left 2/3 of Upper Silesia in Germany and gave 1/3 to Poland. Most of the industrial sector and the coal and iron ore mines were on the Polish side. Neither side was satisfied with the decision, and Germany issued a note of protest. The French also protested on behalf of Poland, but the British refused further changes, and the fighting in Upper Silesia eventually came to an end. The Council had prioritized economic factors over historical or cultural ties and over the local Silesian identity. Even so, the new border caused further economic dislocation. Workers could no longer reach their place of work, suppliers couldn't reach their customers, and vice versa. Yeah. Both sides predicted poverty and a rush of unemployed immigrants. The German government...
Or the people that do illegal things and keep money undeclared, that affects the economy now, especially in certain countries. Imagine, like, during this phase, that's going to be disastrous. That would have been disastrous.
His anger to the Reichstag. The decision of the inter-allied powers presents itself as a serious, monstrous breach of the law, as a political double cross, as an unprecedented damage inflicted on the German nation. As an Upper Silesian, I want to emphasize that it is a mockery of the grandiosely announced and guaranteed right to self-determination. The loss of most of Upper Silesia's economic potential was yet another blow to the German mark. The government therefore decided to increase taxes to fight the growing deficit. Regular German citizens in 1921 had to pay 4 main taxes, the most important of which was income tax. The taxation system did not mix well with the high inflation. As the mark lost value, the government printed more money. But to regular Germans, it was easy to see that prices were going up and harder to imagine an abstract loss of value of their currency.
No.
Furthermore, salaries and wages rose artificially to compensate, which meant that many Germans now had to pay more income tax, even though the new money they earned had little value. For the government, it was not too difficult to apply the higher tax rates to most of the population.
Imagine how many dreams were crushed, how many people would have wanted to buy an own house.
Turned out to be trickier.
Imagine how many people would have wanted to buy an own house. It wouldn't have happened in their lifetime. It's everything, everything is against them.
Although former finance minister Matthias Erzberger had reformed the tax system, there were still quite a few loopholes. And if there was one group...
See, there's another ad, but I feel really bad for children that weren't able to get food and stuff. And I also feel very bad for women that would have suffered during this time. I don't care about the men that wanted to go and drink and stuff, man. What are you doing, man? Go look after your family, man. You just had a war. Oh, for God's sakes. But for everyone that really suffered, man. And they still made it. So many people still made it. and they're still able to survive, and they've given a lot of people today who are not grateful for this. The reason they exist is they didn't give up back then, and they survived and reproduced, and that's the reason. Some of us do exist, but not many of us are grateful for that, unfortunately. Okay, let's carry on. Boom.
Yeah. Germans to come out of the Great War in a better economic and social situation was private industry. Like every other belligerent, Germany had relied on its chemists, engineers, and manufacturers to continue the war, which meant that they made financial gains.
Well, yeah.
Now that the military had lost its leading role in society, industrialists and factory owners saw themselves as the new elite. And like the officer class that they replaced, they were often no friends of the Republic. The Berliner Tageblatt reported on the ways in which wealthy Germans avoided paying their share of taxes. The business taxes bring nearly no income because any kind of expense can be written off, including the cost of private cars for the company owner and directors. The respect for taxes has fallen so low that many hundreds of thousands of well-off citizens haven't even paid their taxes for the year 1920.
What?
The entire tax system is a shaky house of cards.
Selfish, that is.
Many wealthy German and foreign
I understand, I guess.
even took things a step further and actively
when one person does it, everyone's
destroy
going
the mark. They built up credit accounts abroad where the German tax authorities couldn't reach them. Often disguised via Dutch bank accounts, they speculated against the mark through foreign currencies like the Swiss franc. Even less wealthy Germans began to avoid putting their money in German banks and instead relied on private tax advisors to get them into the foreign speculation market. British diplomat Joseph Addison commented on the rampant speculation in September 1921. There is an enormous increase in speculative activities.
I knew it.
According to reports, millions of people in this country are buying foreign currencies and stockpiling foreign banknotes to escape taxation. I barely know any German who doesn't speculate with currencies like the Austrian krone, Polish mark, and even the Kerensky ruble. Another technique to evade taxation was simply to go on a spending spree. Wealthy Germans often threw expensive and extravagant parties to reduce their taxable income. At the same time, unemployment numbers were rising and workers became more and more frustrated. The political left hoped to use this situation to its advantage and organize demonstrations and strikes. Leftist tactics
buying hats for millions
workers against farmers and peasants, and putting the government under even more pressure. The authorities feared the radical left's calls for an end to capitalism and the possibility of more left-wing uprisings after those of 1919 and 1920, so they printed still more money to keep the peace. The ongoing collapse of the mark was far more than a crisis for economists and tax departments. For regular Germans, a stable currency represented trust, stability, and measurement of value in everyday life. The value of money guaranteed the value of work, the hours spent in a factory each day, or the price of bread, not only today, but tomorrow and the day after that. The absence of these guarantees ate away at the social fabric of an already polarized and violent country. High inflation, capital flight, the devaluation of the mark, foreign speculation, and increasing state deficits all painted a bleak picture of the German economy in 1921.
What about education?
The government was proving unable to regain value through taxation and simply continued to flood the market with fresh money. In October 1921, a high-profile group of bankers and financial experts from Switzerland, Italy, and Germany came together to discuss Germany's inflation problem. Their conclusions were sobering. Sooner or later, it would be impossible for the German Republic to pay war reparations and keep the domestic economy afloat. If the trends continued, eventually Germany would have to declare bankruptcy, perhaps sooner rather than later. The German government owed payments of 113 billion marks due in February 1922, but its income was less than 90 billion. Few Germans, even the experts,
I was like a leader at that time, and I would have died of a heart attack just hearing these numbers.
This so-called delirium of billions anymore. Minister Walter Rathenau was one of those who was at a loss. The majority of statesmen and financiers thinks only in terms of paper. They sit in their offices and stare at the papers that lie before them. And on these papers, there are numbers which in turn represent paper. They write down zeros, although 9 zeros mean a billion. A billion rolls easily off the tongue and is easy to say. But no one can actually imagine a billion. What is a billion? Are there a billion leaves in a forest? Who knows? As Germany plunged further into the inflation crisis in late 1921, Rathenau and millions of other desperate Germans could not know that the worst was yet to come. The inflation crisis in post-First World War Germany is a fascinating topic that we're glad that we can bring to you in episodes like today's.
Thank you.
But frankly, if we only made our living on YouTube, we couldn't do it with topics like this one. History is in the crap.
Okay. Feel bad for all the children at the time, all the children's education. The mothers, were they able to feed their children? For the pregnant women, would they be able to feed themselves? Would they have the right facilities? Hopefully the NHS, the medical system they didn't compromise over there. Hopefully they were still running and they were still helping all the civilians and all the people looking after them. So the thing about money really does make the world go around. Very important thing. It took me a while to understand the importance of having a job. Yes, like dreams, that sort of stuff is important, but without money, everything will be zero. So yes, keep that money coming as a sustainable something. It's a fuel that keeps everything going. See, everything would have stopped. So many people's dreams would have stopped. So many people's life, would have stopped. So it's very important. Money is the fuel. Money really is the fuel to keep the vehicle going. So, but where the vehicle's going, that's something different. That's where your heart, your mind, and all that comes into place, and people around you. But money is very important fuel to keep that life going, man. So yeah, I did have a feeling, yes, a lot of the money was so thank you, man. And I know a lot of lives were gone, a lot of tragedies, and a lot of companies were, having a hard time. But I knew like the national economy would have been crashed as well, internationally. So the international tradings would have also been crashed. I knew that would have happened. I just didn't, the reaction, I didn't really talk about that into depth as much as this. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much for letting me know this, man. So World War III is happening. You know what kind of tragedies that's going to bring. Russia, Ukraine, we know about that. Oh God, is it happening? Oh, please don't happen, man. I just beg to hell that World War III doesn't take place. Because even COVID, what I wanted to say before was COVID happened. This is something like not related to this. Wait, before I tell you that, I want to think like, is there anything else I wanted to add? Because it's a little story about me, about this. So, no, I think that's it. I think a lot of them, the missionaries, like those would have created jobs for people at the time, they would have, that would have helped them provide their family, so they would have had money in that way. But yeah, like I said, the people that don't pay their taxes and keep their money hidden from the government, it's gonna be it's something, it builds up somewhere else and it's gonna come and drop on your head, and that's what they didn't realize, that the people that did. So yes, that's all I had said. But yeah, what I started to say was, because COVID, when COVID happened, COVID broke through. So 2020 time, that's when I wanted to like really take my acting somewhere. How I do acting, and I love to do acting. So I thought about it, and I went to go to college, Coventry College. That's where I'm from, Coventry, and I went to go to college because it was free. Everyone studies it for free. So I was like, yeah, let's go there, get a small qualification and go forward with that. And hopefully, I don't really understand the industry, but go and put it through to like, and, you know, that's gonna push me in my acting career. So I went and spoke to everybody, you know, spoke to some of the teachers, and they told me about, hey, this is gonna happen, we're gonna teach you this, we're gonna teach you vocal exercise, we're gonna teach you like practical exercises, we're gonna teach you how to, you know, where to look in the camera, and you're gonna be confident, so many people are gonna be with you. We can even teach you singing, some dancing, some contemporary, some this, some old style, some Shakespeare, all sorts of stuff. And I was like, bro, this is gonna be amazing. I'm gonna learn all of this for free because I'm gonna get my funding. Because I was about 21, so the funding did apply. It said it applied until 23, so I went to go get the funding. As I was sitting there, everything went perfectly until the guy told me that funding, it was until 21, but now the funding has been reduced all the way to 19 because of COVID and the crash, you know, the economic crash, that sort of problem, and how, you know, acting is not a very important thing, and how so many people are suffering from COVID and the government has to pay them. So funding has been stopped for like the least important degree qualifications and stuff. And then they try to, you know, put $7 grand on my head, like, you can get a loan and pay it back later, or you can, you know, pay it right now at the door. And I'm like, you know, forget it, I don't want to do it. I wanted to be an actor, but I didn't want to do it that way. I'm not paying $7 grand, come on, man. I didn't pay $7 grand, and then I got annoyed, and then I went to my work and I made a video, Royal Mail, what's it like to work at Royal Mail, got fired, and you know the story from there. Now I'm doing acting. Luckily, I've done a film. You would know more about that on my Instagram. I'll link my Instagram down in the description, so you can go check that out, see how far I've come without all of this college, without all of that stuff that I didn't need. I'm happy. I'm doing it. Hopefully the films are not released yet, but when they do come out, I'll definitely mention it here, and I'll show you where you can go and watch it and you can go see it. So that's something, a little bit of an interesting history lesson of mine for you guys. But yeah, acting is going, it's a different path. You'll see that on my Instagram. I'll put the behind the scenes and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, some good stuff is happening, so I'm gonna look forward to that. That's all great. But yeah, that's the problem with funding. So money is very important. Money is the fuel to keep it going. It really does make the world go around. So hopefully the economy does not get destroyed because of if World War III happens. And I don't want to see people suffering anymore. I've seen enough now, way more than enough. It's really cool. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching, man. You're all amazing, you're all awesome. If there's anything else you want me to watch, anything else you want me to react to, do let me know down in the comments below, man. And drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and share this with your friends and family, and don't forget to punch that subscribe button and help me get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. You'll mean the world to me, man. I love you all. You're all amazing. You're all awesome. Stay home, stay safe, stay blessed, stay awesome, my little dragons, and I will therefore see you all. Where did my shades go? Yep. I will definitely see you all in the next video.